Welcome to the Bobby Kudo Show, where we dive into the fascinating world of human experiences and excellence. With special guests, real-life anecdotes, and thought-provoking discussions. Get ready to unlock and tap into your absolute potential with your host, manifestation coach, Bobby Kudo.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome episode 93 of the Bobby Kudo Show. It is my pleasure. Niki Fontaine in Studio B today for a conversation. Niki, I just want to say thank you so much for making it here today. You are, I'll give you a chance to respond, but I just got to say this. Like, I more recently dove into your journey, and I want to say, and I want the audience to know this, you are the epitome of what this show is about. I know more recently we've been talking to some political figures, and people are really attacking us, and I'm just going to use that word because there's no other word to use, about the questions I'm not asking and what, and I say to myself, you lost, people. That's not what this show is about. This show is about the struggle. This show is about finding the absolute in your life, realizing that you cannot go any further. Yeah. And you have to surrender and realize that the forces at play will not relent. And until you decide to find your journey, the struggle will always be there.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the show, Niki.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
It's amazing. It's amazing. You have an amazing smile. And listen, nobody told us, but we matched today.
I know, right? Look at us
the
go.
Universe was, that's what I'm saying. The universe
Meant to be.
It was speaking to us, right?
Was.
So more recently, I happened to catch your interview with Mike Sylvia in the Fall River Reporter. And in that interview, I listened to it in its entirety. And I understand that there's a lot of important conversation there. You are involved in a lot of important things right now. And hats off to you for that. And I appreciate you are an absolute pillar of the community. I just want to say that. But more importantly to me, it's what I found fascinating was your journey, how you got here, how this all turned out for you. I mean, I know we were just talking a minute ago, and there's so much in your life that I don't think people are aware of.
Right.
But more importantly, I had Kyle Cusick sitting in that chair. I don't know if you know Kyle. But
so.
Kyle was a victim of the opioid crisis. Mm-hmm. So he, much like you, a minor injury, gets prescribed this medication, and before he knows it, he's stealing from his family and friends. Yeah, an amazing story. I mean, he came out of that. He survived, much like you, Niki. He's here with us to tell us that right. journey. But
Amen.
I've been just fiending for this conversation. Like, I've been wanting to meet somebody that is there, because again, I appreciate the political conversation and all this, but the show is about you. Thank you so much.
I'm very glad to be here. And it's funny, most people don't know my office overlooks the place that I used to sleep in Fall River, so it's a good story.
The irony in that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's go to the beginning. Like, where does this all start? So you're born and raised in the city?
Off and on. Actually, I was born on a Marine base in Maine, and we moved around a million times. I did end up on June Street, like kindergarten, first grade.
Off the Seven Hills, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Yeah. And then we continued to move from there. I probably moved about 50 times, all the way, every coast. My dad ended up in Japan. We stayed in Dayton.
Oh, so your dad was in the military?
Yeah, he was in the Marines.
Career.
I was born
career?
on the base.
Career?
Nope, not full career. He did 8 years. My uncle was career, my cousin's a career, everyone in my family is military. Yeah. I actually wanted to go down that route. But nope, I grew up mostly in Dayton, and I was always like popular kid, amazing at sports, all that stuff. And
most likely to succeed.
Yeah, I actually got typical senior in high school, all those things, best athlete. And then behind the scenes, I was actually being mentally, physically, emotionally abused. When I was 17, I finally went to court against my uncle, who was a Fall River resident. And, halfway through the trial, he ended up changing his plea to guilty for sexually abusing me between like 9 to 12. And I found out that he had also done it to his other siblings, so they spoke at my trial, and I never actually had to get on the stand. My mom went up before me. She's a licensed mental health clinician, and he changed his plea right there, but they don't talk about the victims' names, but we shared the same last name. So everyone knew, a Dayton kid, last name Fontaine, and that was my senior year. And it was a perfect storm, 17 going into my senior year, but it was a perfect storm because sports was my outlet for all of the abuse, right? And I excelled, and we were in the national championship game. You couldn't write this any better. 40 college scouts in the stands, extra innings. I'm on first base. Someone hits it up the line. I dive in a second, and I tear my ACL. And from there, of course, I'm prescribed Oxycontin, and as many as I could possibly. 2001 going into 2002.
That was normal, right?
Yeah.
That was the normal, right? That was
back then. They said it was non-addictive.
Right.
Doctors were pushing it like crazy. So between the trauma, not being able to play sports, I wasn't able to use my scholarship. I went down to Florida for college, and I tried walking on to the team, but I just was never right again, and there even everyone had pills.
Right? The recovery in that, right? Because your muscles are never the same again, right? And meanwhile, everybody else is still competing and playing, and you're trying to catch up.
Right. At the most critical time of my life for a sports career. You know what I mean?
Right.
So obviously that went to the wayside. And while I was down in Florida at college, of course, partying was everything. But my uncle actually died one night. And my family wasn't going to tell me he was dead. I called my aunt. And I was like, listen, so-and-so is going to come kill me. Like, I don't want to be here. There was like weird phenomenon happening. Like back then it was a VCR popped out of the TV and onto the ground, and the lights were going off, and I was freaking out. So she actually picked me right then. She told me, I promise you he's never going to hurt you. And I was like, that's bullshit. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I dropped out from there, and I was just off and running with the prescriptions that I had, and it was never enough, My first detox, I was like 20 years old.
So you were in Florida?
Yeah.
When this happened. So there was really nobody there to be like, hey, Niki, whoa. You're taking too many of these, right? So is there something that you notice? Do you actually notice and be like, oh, wow, I took an extra one. I'm just going to take an extra one. It's not. Was it something you were conscious of?
No, not at all. So it was really like you had tried weed, right? And I actually have an issue with the schools and the old DARE program where they tell kids that, like, you do any drug, it's all the same, right? Because once a kid tries alcohol and weed and it's not that bad, that you think they're lying to you. You know what I mean? So for me,
that's a really good point. That's a really good point. I never even thought of that.
Yeah,
right. Oh, it can't be that bad, right?
Right. There was no harm in the alcohol, the weed as a 17-year-old, 16-year-old,
sure.
And then even trying mushrooms and a couple of pills back then. But it was like, I had no idea that something from a doctor could be even worse or just as bad as heroin. You know what I mean?
Right.
No clue. So for me, it was just like anything else. Like I was always able.
So you're in Florida, right? I don't want to get ahead of this because I'm so into this right now. So you're in Florida, and so are you asking for are you calling going, hey, I need more medication? Is like, who's making that call?
No. So at that point, I didn't have the prescriptions anymore.
Okay.
Because I didn't get to the point just then where I was like physically addicted to them. I had abused them and knew I liked them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Right. But I didn't know anything about physical addiction yet.
Okay.
So I went down there for about a year, and on the street, that's when I was like Oxys and Vicodin and Percocet, but I was mixing it still with like cocaine and ecstasy. Like I knew that I loved that, but it wasn't like an everyday thing yet.
Gotcha.
It was progressing rapidly.
Right.
But I wasn't paying attention. I was still going to school. I didn't care. I was getting good grades. No one cared. And that incident happened, and I came back home, and it was like everywhere up here, more than on the college campus. It was, I wasn't getting ecstasy and mushrooms anymore and all those things. It was, you're taking oxys. Every single person I went to school with, anyone I ever used with is dead except for one person, So I also had other abuse going on, and my dad was an alcoholic growing up and very abusive after he came back from the Marines. He was never the same person. So
I've heard that before.
Yeah. We really butted heads, and I mean knock it down dragouts. And
you're in your 20s?
At this point, 19.
19?
Yep. And I moved into a house with this older guy. He had the prescriptions. It was a family friend, and it was just downhill from there. Now I started selling them to support myself because I dropped out of college, you know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't want anything to do with like having to take his money. I wanted to make my own, so I became the drug dealer.
Right.
I always was able to get like a waitress and bartending job, which went with the lifestyle, and it was funny because I remember sitting in this little closet, and I got my first music machine, and like I said, I didn't have an outlet once sports came. It was just full into drugs at that point. I for the first 25 years of my life, I woke up screaming every night to the same nightmare of being raped, killed, and that took the nightmares away. And it made me comfortable to be in a relationship with a man because I'm a lesbian, but I didn't know it at the time.
Right.
And I just thought something was wrong with me.
Well, of course, because this is your experience. Your experience with this is terrible. It's terrifying.
It was awful.
So why would you want to be intimate, right? And the idea of being into it with a man, you're like, well, I'm not going to do this because this is how it makes me feel, not realizing what your true calling was.
And I really thought, like, that's what you had to do in a relationship. You just have sex. You know what I mean? So, like, I was just getting as high as I could to be as normal as I could. And then as I'm selling it and people are starting to trade me their PlayStations and stuff, and I can't understand why. I'm like, you really want to give me that? Like, just for this, Not knowing that now I'm physically addicted.
Sick,
but I didn't have to be sick yet.
You have an endless supply. You have an endless supply.
Exactly. I had no clue.
Wow.
And it was just this thing from a doctor. Right. So yeah, it spiraled out of control. Obviously, I ended up in my first detox. First time was for pills. I was 20 years old.
Were you making money though? Were you making some money?
I was making money. Yeah, I definitely was.
So were you living a lifestyle? Did you have cars? Did you?
I had all that stuff, and I would go on vacations and stuff. I wasn't no high-ranking person, but I could support.
But I'm looking at you like you're my daughter, right? And I'm saying to myself, well, I see she's doing okay, right? Like she's got a car, she's got money, like she seems like she's got everything together.
Right.
Meanwhile,
you would never know looking from the outside in. Yeah, exactly. And I wound up in Star when I was 20 for the first time. And I'll never forget that they told me I could never drink. And I was like, I'm not even legal to drink yet. So you guys are out of your mind. And I wasn't listening, right?
Sure.
And alcohol did really cost me another 10 years of my life just about because you drink and it leads you back to the rest. And I mean, the next 10 years are kind of a blur. But I can tell you, I went to like 16 detoxes. I was sectioned multiple times, arrested a bunch of times in Fall River, and Taunton sometimes. And finally on April 11th, 2013, I got into a head-on collision where I broke my collarbone, sternum, lacerated my liver, spleen, gallbladder. They removed all that, collapsed both lungs, severed my major artery in my leg, both arms, both legs, all my ribs broken. I mean, there was not much left of me after this car accident.
Wow, where was this?
It was on Route 44 in Seekonk, Rehoboth. At the time, I had rented like a room in East Providence, and I was going to pick up more because now I had graduated,
that's one way in both
heroin.
directions, right? That's one car in one direction. So people get an idea. It's one car in either direction.
Yeah, and I think the speed limit's 50, so it's not a slow street, right?
Yeah, right.
And we had both just crossed the line a little bit, I guess, and that was it. I woke up a couple days later to the Boston Marathon bombings happening, and I was in the ICU, and I was semi-stable because I had 6 surgeries in the first 7 days. They told my mom I had 50-50 chance to live. They left my stomach open for the night. They had to pack it with gauze because they couldn't get my liver to stop bleeding. And they said the only reason they even attempted to operate was because I was conscious when I got to the hospital.
Wow.
And it's crazy because one of my buddies from high school was the EMT on scene. And years later, I asked him because in my mind, I was calm in that car. Someone was sitting with me telling me that I was going to be okay, and I just had to breathe. And probably 3 years later, I finally had the courage to ask him what happened on the scene. And he said, Nikki, you were just screaming. There was nothing else but screams,
Wow.
And I don't know if that kept me alive, but it was an angel, obviously, in the car with me that day. I have no doubt. But it kept me conscious enough to get to the hospital. And I woke up to the Boston Marathon bombings, and they moved me out of the ICU to make room for more patients. And unfortunately, the person that took over my care hated addicts. They took me off all pain medicine, even though the person in my room had one broken rib and they had her on a fentanyl drip, right?
That goes right over here if you want.
Yeah, I'm trying. And so once they moved me onto her unit, she took me off all pain medicine, everything. So now I'm detoxing with all my bones broken and trying to rip. I had tubes coming out of me everywhere. I looked like the alien. And I'm trying to rip some out and like army crawl out of the hospital because I can't do anything like this.
And you're sick.
I'm dying sick. I'm puking. It's coming out of everywhere.
Nikki, this is crazy. Like It's amazing.
You can't even imagine the pain when you have all that broken and no pain medicine.
And the desire, you're crawling out of bed. I mean,
trying.
Most people are dead at this point. You know
right.
what I mean?
I wanted to die. So that's basically what happened. After a day and a half of that, I ended up calling a dealer to come to the hospital. And when he got there, I told him just set up the whole thing. Like I was ready to die again, you know. And again, I woke up to the priest reading my last rites. Like 50 doctors saving my life. I was on the phone with my mother so she heard the code blue, you know, so she almost lost me twice in a week, right? Wow. And like I would love to tell you guys like, okay, this was the end, you know what I mean? Like it just never ended. There was no bottom to my story. Every time I thought I hit bottom, the elevator could go further down to hell, you know. And I woke up to that, and the lady did get in trouble. I did get medicated, and I was in the hospital for 2 months really trying to recover, and like obviously didn't have any dealers come.
Sure, right.
I was trying, and
so you made a conscious decision, like, okay, I got to try to.
Yeah, I tried.
So you're like you're reaching your absolute at this point. Yeah. You're like I'm
close.
You're close. So you're almost there. You're starting to
Kinda.
see it. Okay. Yeah.
Because when I left the hospital, I was still prescribed fentanyl patches and 135 oxys every 2 weeks. So I couldn't really do much, right?
You actually leveled up.
Yeah,
crazy, man.
exactly, right.
Jeez.
And this was actually where it got to be the worst. I'd met someone in detox, of course, and she was living with me in the East Providence house. So when I got released, we tried to part ways, you know, because she was still actively using. I was with all this pain medicine. Yeah. And I went to my parents' house, and I lasted 3 days. My father and I, even though I was in a body cast and a wheelchair, we were going to square up, and he got in my face and he said he was going to be the one to put me in the ground. And there was a knife on the counter, and I literally grabbed it and was about to swing, and like something just was like, you just go, Nikki, you know, like I don't know what made me stop. I don't, because I hated that man like my whole life, you know, and I would always picture in self-defense what I was going to do back to him.
And here you are, right, in the most vulnerable state, right?
As I'm already ready to end my own life, you know? So I ended up leaving there in a wheelchair, and I came back to Fall River and just ran the streets for the next 9 months with my ex, who unfortunately did die of an overdose. You know, and it's funny because I had to teach myself how to walk on these streets. I had to put my one bag of clothes on my wheelchair and push it from behind like a walker. You know, and the amount of people.
And you're sleeping in the street?
Oh, yeah. Concrete slabs right where they built.
Stitches.
Everything. Right where they built the Duval station. I really shouldn't.
I say the same thing about myself, like, and I say that statement in strength, like you shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
But here you are.
Yep.
But here you are.
There's a reason.
Right.
And I believe that for all of us.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And my Homeless camp was back where they just built the train station now, up on those the stairs there.
Yeah.
So I'd go back to there, wake up on a concrete slab, you know, and at this point now heroin and fentanyl and all that isn't enough. Now I want cocaine, right? So for the last year, I was speedballing, trading my fentanyl patches and the Oxycontin for what I really wanted. A finger of dope and an ounce of coke, and just like a madman. Death wish.
Right.
Because I always said one day I would get this, tomorrow. Like I just wasn't ready. But at this point now, I didn't think I would get this. I had tried everything. I had tried methadone, Suboxone, Vivitrol, detox, arrests, sections. Like there was no more hope at this point, you know? And then eventually, Fall River Police picked me up on, it was actually a mistaken identity. They thought I was wearing a jacket, and this chick had robbed someone, and I had on the same jacket, and they got me. I had a warrant, so they were keeping me, but that wasn't me. But it was divine intervention, right? We get to the station. They can see I have a bulge in my pants. So I do a strip search, and right there in the cell, all the needles and the drugs and everything goes flying to the ground. And I honestly just dropped down to my knees with it. Like something finally clicked. Like I am done. I was so sick and tired of this life, you know? And like the attempted rapes and the things you have to do to survive being on the street as a female, you know? Like I was just done. And that was January 9th.
That's divine intervention. You're absolutely right. Like the idea that you were picked up by accident and brought there and had that moment, that profound moment of surrender, which I think is the most beautiful moment in your life.
Yeah.
Where you realize, okay, that's it. This is the old me is gone. This is what I want.
Right, exactly. And the crazy part is I skipped over this, but in between moving into that guy's house and dropping out of college and, my car accident, I was this close to my dreams on VH1. I suddenly realized I was good at music and writing music and rapping. And I put together this little studio in the closet at that guy's house. Yeah. And suddenly I see online one day, are you a female rapper? Blah, blah, blah. And they would call me. I had to send my stuff. Okay. And they would call and be like, oh, you're top 20,000. Well, eventually I got called to go to New York and do an on-screen filming. I was clean at the time because I did have I would stay clean for 3 months, 6 months, and just keep messing up. Yeah. So I went to New York. They loved me. I got a call.
21, 20?
Nah, probably 24.
Yeah.
I want to say.
All right. Okay.
Something
all right.
like
24.
That.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And they loved me, and so I got a call that I made it to top 25 out of everyone in the country. They flew me to LA, and I made it to top 10 and lived in the house with Kaya, who sings My Neck, My Back, MC Surge, and Charlie Baltimore, and all them were in there.
No kidding.
And it was $100,000 in a record deal, and I literally had my dreams at my fingertips. One thing for me, if I want something, it comes fairly easy to me. Like I was telling him earlier, I was a mason. Like anything I do, I can flip houses. It comes easy, right? Yeah. So at the time it was music, and it sucks because in between them flying me to New York and LA, I relapsed. So I actually threw my needle away in the airport, getting on the plane to LA.
You're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right?
And I have one Suboxone to try not to be sick. Yeah. And so of course on the show, there's like a 3-day holding pattern where you're in the hotel before you go on camera. And I'm sweating and I'm dying and I'm like, how am I ever going to do this, Right. And on the show I did, say I was sober and I wasn't. Just tried my best.
What was the name of the show?
Miss Rap Supreme. It was the sequel to the White Rapper show. That was really big.
So people could watch it. Is it still like on YouTube maybe?
Probably, yeah.
I would love to check that out. I'm going to check that out. I'm going to check that out.
That's
That's amazing. What an amazing story.
Yeah. But it's funny, to have your dreams at your hand, right? Literally in front of you, you can be the thing you've wanted to be, and drugs are too powerful to even give you that, right?
How did it end for you there? When did you decide? You just quit?
No. We would do follow-up things. Like Donnie from Making the Band and I did a lot of shows in New York and different places, or Pepsi Smash the Mic commercial. So every time I'd get a little clean time, I'd pop my face back up, and then I'd go very deep into a dark hole somewhere and disappear. Yeah. And now I actually just rebuilt my studio, not for me, but to record other people, because addicts are very, very talented people, super creative. Yes. So I want to give them that outlet for free to get something out. Yeah. Because writing is powerful. If you can't tell your story yet, you can write it and put it in music,
This past summer I had the amazing pleasure of hanging out with your boy Loco, and he had an event lit summer over at the Cultural Center, and he invited me to be there, and I did some interviews with the people that were performing, and that's who it was. Every single one of these people that were there had a story, had a struggle, whatever it was, whether it be their own struggles in life, or substance, whatever it was, they all went through that struggle to get there. And I remember thinking to myself, I was talking to David, this is an odd thing for me to do. I've never, around, because I'm into interviewing the struggle, right? And to be around people that are performers and doing rap. And I'm like, wow, that's everybody that's here. I'm with my people. Here we are. The struggle to success. And you're absolutely 100% right. When you listen to the words, the way that they write, the way that they perform, it's from the heart. It's all soul. It's all passion.
Emotion.
It's 100% emotion. Yeah. So that VH1 doesn't work out.
Yep.
You end up coming back here?
Yeah, so at that point, once I entered recovery January 9th, 2014, because I'm coming up on 12 years clean.
Congratulations.
I was a year clean, and my mom and I had this genius idea, because at that time there was no programs in Fall River that were doing outreach or helping the homeless or anything like that. There was absolutely nothing being done about the opioid epidemic. So in 2016, Fall River had 85 deaths. That was our peak. And we were third in the state, even though we're the 10th largest city. Only Boston and Worcester had more deaths than us. Okay. So my mom and I walked into the mayor's office, Correa's office at the time, and pitched this idea for what's now known as Project Reconnect. And we go into the homes. It's a volunteer program, post-overdose, with the police, and try to offer treatment and resources. So for the next 2 years, I volunteered for the city doing that. And there was a lot of us. At the time was Captain Cabral, now Chief Beth Fonts from EMS, Recover Fall River people. And that became a success. Right now, to go from 85 deaths, and we had about 1,500 non-fatals every year, to right now we're about 40 deaths and 500-600 non-fatals. That's a huge decrease.
Absolutely.
And we are fighting way worse drugs than when we started.
Would you say that this is part of your healing? That this continues to be part of your healing?
Of course.
Yeah. I see it. I see the passion when you talk about it. I see that it means that much to you. And I think, the people that understand this the most should be doing exactly what you're doing. You know what I mean? Let the artists do what they do.
Right, exactly.
And I think understanding the importance of that, I just, because I want to talk about it, because I think it's important. Most people that don't understand addiction or loved someone who's been, I don't think they fully understand. I think there's always don't help them. Don't help them be worse. I agree with what you're saying with the panhandlers. I don't support the panhandlers because you can kind of see what that is. But I will say that some will say that we're perpetuating this behavior, that we're not helping the situation, that we're just providing this ongoing pain for these people. And just to my point, the beginning of the show, I said, we all have to get to that point where we reach the absolute. And I asked you twice, and then the second time you're like, yeah, that was the moment, and I think we all have to reach that point. Yep. Do I believe comfort slows the process? Maybe, but I also believe that the human experience is individual.
Right.
And the one thing you can try to plan and you could do numbers for everything, but you can never calculate the human element.
Absolutely. And I actually agree with that. I don't think we should be making it super comfortable. My team, we don't give out tents or clothes or food usually. You know what I mean? We'll help the people that do, and support them as needed. But for me, I had to be uncomfortable. My mom finally had to kick me out and say enough and put an alarm in our house. You know what I mean? And I had to be on the street, right? Otherwise, if you're going to hand me money and I can support my habit and I can, get everything that's needed, why am I going to change? Yeah. It has to have some level of uncomfortability. That's profound that you have that vision, that you actually see that, because a lot of people be like, well, no, but the truth is it's a process, right? It's a process. And I think there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. But also what some people forget, right? Because it's usually so black and white in some people's minds, where you can help them, you want to feed them, clothe them, take care of them, or just cut them off, and you forget, you still have to treat them human, right? Just because I'm not out there giving them the tents or the food, I'm still going to build a rapport with them and treat them kindly and offer anything that I can to that person. And sometimes it's just a matter of listening to them, right? You have to build that rapport, because you best believe when they are ready, they're calling me to get help, Sure.
And that's 24/7, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a Saturday.
We were walking up, and a guy came up to us that I had never really seen. And he was like, wait, I know you. You're Niki. Yeah. And he's clearly homeless, right? Yeah. And he had just lost his brother. But that happens everywhere I go now. Right. And that isn't because I put myself on these shows, because homeless people don't really see him, right? It's because I'm in the streets and in their homes, or whoever I'm helping, constantly answering the phone, going to meet with them,
Right. Well, and again, I want to make this aware, just in case people don't know, none of this is free. There's a cost to all this. And more recently, which I'm happy to report, Massachusetts was awarded right? Some for the opioid, right? Like
Yep.
there was a settlement, and the city of Fall River is going to get about what
8 million,
about 8 million of that over the next. Yeah, but just so people know, it's
Yep.
over the next 15 years.
Yes.
So it's not like you're getting it
Right.
all. You're getting it all at once. So it's
Yeah.
really understanding that has to go a very, very long way.
Yes.
I talked to Christopher. I know Christopher was in the studio, and we talk about homeless. I think that his idea and I think his awareness is important. I know that not everybody agrees with what is happening here, but I want to say this because it's important. I want to say that all of you are on the right side. You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
You know what I mean? Like I know that everybody doesn't agree about how we do everything, but I think that's the magic in what we do, right? If we all agree, nothing ever gets done.
Right, absolutely. No. And that whole thing, it was very shocking to me because 1 minute, right, he would hit me up to help someone, and I'd be like, sure, just like anyone else that hits me up.
Yeah.
I was happy to help. And then the next minute I see the AI video that whatever his name is made, and it just turned suddenly. And I was very confused at that, right? Because we had just did the Gabriel Fire and event and all those things. Yeah. So it is what it is, right? And I know after volunteering and working with the city for 10 years, it's always a dirty game. Every 2 years, people are out for what they can get.
That's too bad.
But one thing that bothers me that they don't know, which Chris was invited to the tables of the street outreach meeting, of the Homeless Mayor's Task Force meeting. We tried to get him in there so we could see what was going on, right? Because I don't think people have a full understanding
100%.
at all
100%.
of what we do.
Right.
And the great thing is we don't take a cent from the city. We wrote grants. We have a little bit of the opiate settlement money, but that was dispersed to lots of different agencies.
So. This is the reason.
Right.
This is exactly where it should be going.
And I told people it's blood money, right? It's not grant money, so it should be getting to the people that actually suffered
100%.
And, paying for the funerals and things like that, right? So since I've gotten there, we wrote for the CARA grant. Mayor Coogan gave me the approval, and Mike Dion, who's my direct supervisor, because like I said, Project Reconnect was all the city had, and it was a volunteer program for 2 years. Yep. So finally now we write for this FR grant. It's a first responder grant, and we're awarded it, and it's $2 million over the 4 years. And that gave us, myself, the director, a data and outreach coordinator. It gave us 2 recovery coaches. It gave us a police liaison from Fall River, a clinician, a trainer and educator who trains the first responders and the community with Narcan and stigma and all those things. And it also gave the city its first large batch of Narcan. I think last year we got $90,000 worth of Narcan. Oh, wow. So that's what's out there saving these people, giving them another day to fight, right? So that was the beginning. So for the last 4 years, we're coming to the end of that. That's the F.A.S.T team. And we've been able to help thousands of people with that grant. It's been amazing. So much so that SAMHSA sent our statistics to the White House on multiple occasions, right? Yeah. And so we wanted to expand that. We didn't want to just let it drop because we still see gaps. Just because we have 6, 7 people that are now doing this work with the collaborations we have, there's still going to be gaps, and there's still going to be things that are needed. And $2 million doesn't go that long.
The human element, right? Like that's the gaps. Is the human element. You can't predict absolutely everything.
Never.
Yeah, and so even with that said, I want to make this comment as well because I had Boomer in the studio as well, and he had nothing but the nicest things to say about you, including that his words were, every time I've ever called her, he's like, and I've called her at some crazy hours of the night. Yeah. She's always answered the phone, and she's always been there to support my needs. Yep. So I think it's important for people to hear that. I think it's important for people to know that our leaders, right? The people that are putting their hat in the ring to lead our city are reaching out to you for the support, and not only are they getting that support, but they're really complimenting the way that they're getting that support. No,
and I do have to say the same for Boomer too. Like it goes both ways. He's been super helpful for many years, and I'm a big fan of him. And the reason I believe that the other camp started to attack me is because I just wouldn't lie about Coogan, right? When Coogan first got in, he was going to fire me. We didn't have anything yet. I was like a homeless advocate back then. I think I had just switched from part-time to full-time. I was the only city person trying to help mental health, substance use, and homelessness. Just me. And I was doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What do you have? What, 10 people now? 8 people? 8 people
We're about
now?
to have 10
Okay.
next month.
So you were doing the work of 10 people.
Yes,
right.
100%.
Right.
Spending my own money, you know what I mean? Like, there was no extra money. There was nothing. You know, and Mayor Coogan and I sat down, and once he got to meet me and talk with me, and like I said, he allowed me to write the CARA grant, and that's where it just blew up. And since then, we also just received the DOJ Connect and Protect grant that adds 2 more clinicians and a mental health peer worker, because drug calls are going down, mental health is skyrocketing. So we want to meet that need. And we partnered with Child and Families in Star, and they have a mobile crisis van now, so that literally people in the encampment, and people don't know this is happening ever.
Which is why you have to come back on my show, and we have to talk about this every time, because I tell you right now, we want to support you in any way we can. You know what I mean? This is the most noble work that's happening out there right now, because this is thankless.
Yeah,
Nikki, nobody.
It is thankless.
It's a thankless job. You know what I mean?
But I get to see the people after years later, and their mom is crying, saying, "Thank you for helping my son." That's when that's all I need, or see the glow come back in that person's life. You know,
the intervention that you had. There's just that little bit of shift was enough for them to come out of this. Let me tell you, I just not to get too into the weeds, but how do you deal? And this is just me, my own personal question to you. How do you deal with people that don't want help? Like, how does that, because it's easy to be like, okay, well, you don't want it, I'm out of here. Like, what is the process for you?
Honestly, it's still a case-by-case basis. Like, if someone says, you know, they don't want help, but I'll take your card, you know, I'm still going to give them my card. I'm still going to just have a little talk with them, you know what I mean? And hope and pray they reach out, or I wait like a couple weeks and I'll reach out again, you know what I mean? But we do get some that, I mean, almost get violent and say, get the hell out, like, I don't want help. Those you have to respect and back away. But overwhelmingly, what's happening out there is we're just building that rapport. Like, okay, man, you ain't ready for help, but, you know, do you need A, B, and C, you know, and
the olive branch, right? Like, hey, here's some toilet paper, right? Just a little something,
something.
Basically, I something I found very interesting. Tracking. Is there some type of tracking that we have with the homeless? So I found this very interesting.
Yeah. So now with the CARA grant, we were able to develop the city's first database. It's Gelada, where it tracks homelessness, mental health, and substance use calls. The 911 calls. So for Christine and I, she's the data coordinator, outreach coordinator.
Okay.
We go into ESO, which is EMS's database, and IMC for the police, and we go through all the calls that come in, and now it's being directly imported into Gelada that match those categories. We're tracking all the encounters and follow-up visits we have with them. It maps out, you know, how many in this age or this location. But it also gives us the ability to have a collaboration now. So out of the DOJ grant, we're building a hub. We have about 25 agencies, DMH, DDS, the courts, both hospitals, police, EMS, Child and Families. I could go on forever. All pertinent agencies have now signed on together with the city to be able to establish a hub where you will get a personalized team. You know, say someone has DCF involvement and their kid's struggling in school and they're an addict and they have mental health, you're going to get a team that meets those exact needs. So we're building that hub with Gelada's help because they'll be able to, if they seen John Doe yesterday, they'll write it in so that we're not duplicating services anymore between the 10 agencies. There's just been so many gaps and things that have truly grown in the past 6 years, you know, and we're not stopping by any means, right? We're adding more people in October. So, but I see the gap still, right? And we work as hard as we possibly can. But people have to remember, there's a lot of people out there that are not ready yet, right? You can't force them. If they don't reach the bar of a Section 35 or a Section 12, there's nothing that we can do to pull them off the street until they're ready. But we created the EWE program, Enhancement Without Encampment, and that's been extremely successful. So that puts people in detox and step down, and then we'll pay for up to 6 months in a sober house. They can't just screw around in that sober house. They have a coach. We give them training at Mass Hire. You know, then they have to show the ability to work and save by month 3. But we've gotten... It's easily over 100 people now since we started it almost a year ago. I would say 40 graduates.
Oh, wow.
And about 25 still in sober living right now.
Wow.
So it's pretty successful.
Yeah, so it's like a 65% success rate.
Successful.
That's pretty great. That's in consideration that, again, people, substance, sickness, everybody deals with this differently. Not everybody is going to rip themselves out of a hospital bed and crawl across the floor. You know what I mean? Like the strength inside you to, you know what I mean?
I'm a stubborn Portuguese.
Yeah, you're a fighter is what you are. I can see it. I can absolutely see that. And so here we are at this point now, right? And so I think things always change. And, for me, you think the mayoral race is every 2 years, right? So for you, I can only imagine what that means, right? The uncertainty and hey, will this guy want or this lady, will they want what we have here, and are they willing to support us? Are they going to cut our funding?
Yeah.
And so I even know that, and I want the audience to know this, that you even cut back your hours just so that you could support and have the funds go to where they're needed. You went to
the
part-time.
Last year and a half I dropped to part-time on the books, even though I was pretty much doing 40, sometimes more hours. Sure. But for me, it's not about that. I do this because I want to save lives. I want to see Fall River.
I believe you, Niki. No, I want people to hear me say that. I see it in your eyes. I absolutely 100% believe you. 100%.
Yeah, man, I've lost everyone I cared about. Everyone I grew up with. My ex-fiance died of an overdose in some random dude's house, right? And, just the stories. When I first started this job, it was my best friend's death report that I had to read. The first one that came across my desk. And ever since then, I've brought his mother flowers on Mother's Day, and, they just came to the event we had, the overdose awareness event. And I don't want any more parents to have to go through that, so I literally have always done whatever I could. I spend my own money relentlessly like an idiot, Then I look back when I do my taxes, I'm like, damn.
This is your journey, Niki. This is your journey. You're living your journey. You are absolutely where you're right exactly where you should be. And listen, I am proof positive. If you live your dreams, money's a byproduct. It all just happens.
Yes.
So real quick, I just want the audience to be aware. If they wanted to support you in your organizations, what's the best way that they can do that?
It depends. What kind of support are you talking?
So if I wanted overall, like, hey, listen, I don't know all the nitty gritty, right? And I got a couple of dollars, and Niki, I want to throw a couple of dollars your way. What's the best way to do that without getting into anything else?
I would say the advocacy fund that we created is we take donations.
Can you share that with us? Is there a website or?
There's not a website, but I'm trying to think. Usually, if they just call a hotline, we can go pick up a check. It will get,
Do you have that number?
Entered. Yeah, 508-676-3528. That is 24-hour hotline. Anyone can call anytime. We're answering. Yeah. But yeah, no, absolutely. Because the advocacy fund, we created that because it doesn't have many stipulations. So the one thing is it's going to help someone that's in recovery or the addict's family. Okay. We've paid $1,000 towards funeral services. We've paid for someone in recovery to get the car towed. Like, it could be anything in between. Right.
But that's a cool story, though. Real quick, just a real cool story. The towing where that was a star, right? The individual that is now has the. Could you mind?
That's one of them.
Would you mind sharing that story real quick? That's a success story, and I'd love to just share that with the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the participants that we were putting into the EWE program, the Sober House, we had talked to him to get him into treatment. His car was at Star and it had broken down, his truck actually, and he thought he had it squared away with security, but unfortunately the next shift ended up having it towed. Star they tried to make it right. They paid half, but he didn't have the funds to even pay half. So the advocacy fund was able to pay for that man's truck to get towed back to his home so that he could stay in treatment while he was in the Sober House. We paid a couple months for him, sober living, and now he's driving the nicest Mercedes I've ever seen. Excellent. He's got the best union job, carpentry. He's so talented. Yep. And his girlfriend and kid are back in his life. And
but you understand the difference? Like, that moment right there was the difference, right? You're flipping a coin.
Right.
If there's no help there and he can't get a vehicle,
walking out.
And now he can't go to his union job to go to, then what's the point? Everything falls apart at that point. So it's so critical. That little puzzle piece, that little brick is what forms the foundation for something great. I love to hear that.
Yeah,
I love to hear that.
And honestly, there's a lot of those stories, and that's what keeps me going, because sometimes, man, I'm not gonna lie, I'm human. I do get tired, right? And to have the attacks every 2 years, and like feel like I have to prove myself, even though I've worked my ass off, and sometimes for nothing. You know what I mean? It gets tiring. It does.
The people that do the most say the least.
Yeah, I do agree with that, because I don't feel the need, like I feel like the people that know me know, and
Right. Well, it's not about proving anything at this point.
Right.
You're so far beyond that. It's literally the idea that it's almost, I hate to say the word, almost survival, right? Every 2 years, because you're like, hey, listen, we need to get this. And I personally, between me and you, I think it's something that should be written in. I think it's something that should be like, the Parks Department, right? Like it should be there. I mean, look, the amount of money that we spend in this city in taxes,
right?
I'm not arguing if some of that went to an amazing organization like yours with good, amazing people doing God's work. I mean, literally doing God's work. You're saving lives.
Yeah.
People, real quick, and I don't want to get too far. I know this is going a long time, but what do you do with pets? Like if people have pets, is that something you come across
Work
often?
miracles, because it's not easy.
It's not easy, right? Because
it happens a lot.
You can't go into these halfway houses, stepping, like you can't do that with a pet. Is it Forever Pause? Do they assist?
So for a little while, we did have Forever Pause, and I have a great relationship with Animal Control, Cindy. They were keeping our cats that we would get while we got the person help and assistance, so they got on their feet for a few months. And Forever Pause was helping with the dogs, but they since, I believe, lost the grant or didn't get to renew the grant, so they haven't really been able to do that right now.
Well, see, that's something important people need to know, because maybe that's something we can contribute to. Maybe we can work on getting,
great,
right?
Because it happens all the time.
Nobody thinks of them.
No one wants to leave their pet. If that's all you have, that is your family,
right.
And
part of that recovery is knowing that your pet, the thing you love most, is safe.
Right.
I can worry about me. I can recover. Hey, where's Fluffy? Where's Fluffy? Where's Fluffy? Right?
Yep.
I think that makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. And honestly, like, people can say what they want about House of Hope in New Bedford, but they have helped me in some sticky situations like that. Whether the person had a pet, or let's see, Sunday night I get a call at 10:30 at night. Father Bill's in Brockton, I guess, shut down. Kicked this girl and her 12-year-old son to the street. She was the last one in there. Literally doesn't have a car, doesn't have anything. I just happened to get a call. My fiance spotted her and called me.
Wow.
She ended up being like someone that had roots in Fall River. But yeah, they just shut their doors and said, good luck. 12-year-old son and a mother. 11 o'clock at night. All her stuff on the street.
Wow.
House of Hope took them in for me that night.
Wow.
You know? So we get creative, and that's why we created the programs like the Sober House program. Capri Motel. In dire situations, we have a mother with 4 children there right now. Ann O'Neill Souza and myself have been emailing back and forth with DHCD to hurry their process along, because I'm not gonna lie, I am not a fan of the state process. Family shelter is terrible.
Right.
It takes forever. You can't have an eviction. You can't make over a certain amount. Like, and I mean, you make $1 over 35,000 or something,
and that you're out.
You're not getting in. Like, how can you survive on 35,000 with children?
It really should be a case by case basis. Really should.
It should.
Yeah, evaluate that on a case by case basis. You know, a lot of people get lost that way because the numbers don't match. You know what I mean? And even a decimal point in the wrong spot, and now you don't have a place to stay. You know what I mean?
The ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, I want to talk about the dirty. So you, in the middle of the night, partnering with police, responding to these situations. Can you tell us about that and what that's like? I mean, in the middle of the night, not knowing what the hell is going on, showing up to these dark places. Tell me about that.
Honestly, I personally love it. I do. To go from being the person in the backseat of the police car to being the one that, like, we're coworkers now, you know, and we all play an important role, and we just work together so seamlessly. Like, we were able to pick the police that we brought onto the program, and they're amazing. Most of them are either in recovery or a family member is, you know,
right. So it's personal.
You know,
personal.
every day is different, right? So one day I will be starting my day off cleaning one of the encampments with those guys, or, you know, I'm in a court trying to fight for this woman to get her kids back, or the next day we're just going down the street, you know, to these different houses where an overdose happened with the police, you know. But honestly, I would say my personal favorite is the crisis calls where we're just driving.
Can you tell us how that works? So a call comes in, right? 911, the call comes in. What happens?
It really depends who the call comes from, but let's say it's just a bystander. They see someone that seems to be out of control on the side of the road. They'll call 911. We'll be listening to dispatch, or a caller will request the F.A.S.T team. Mm-hmm. We go right there on site. The police will clear it first real quick.
Oh, so the police go in. It's clear for F.A.S.T.
Yeah.
Intervene.
Well, we have a Lieutenant Burt with us in the car as well. Yeah. But obviously there's situations like they don't have to clear every single scene. Right. But there was one where there was a potential bomb threat.
You don't know what you're getting into. Seriously,
right. So the police do always, have our backs. They're always looking out for us. They go step first. You know what I mean? Yeah. But we're right behind them and. Just offering any kind of assistance. So our clinicians will do a biopsychosocial right there. They can bypass the hospital. Like the Section 12, what was happening in Fall River was police had no tools prior to clinicians on the F.A.S.T team. They just had to Section 12 everyone to the hospital because, they don't know what else to do with someone. Right. And what was happening was the hospital was just overrun. They were doing like 2,000 Section 12s in 6 months. The number was outrageous, right? And the hospital was just getting so inundated, and 99% of them were back on the street in 3 hours, right?
Yeah, because I'm out.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Right.
So now what's happened is we have a 99% success rate. If our clinician says someone needs to be Section 12, they're Section 12, right? He can do it himself. Or we go right to child and families on Pleasant Street. Police are just bringing them right there. So they don't have to spend all that time and manpower and energy and miss the other calls.
Yeah, they're just going to go anyway.
Sitting at the hospital, right. So now we're doing all that for them, right? And the new CARA grant, which is hopefully going to start in October. We're still waiting to hear, but we actually added a piece for EMS to be able to give antibiotics, whether IV or oral, and other certain kind of services to the encampments. They won't have to go to the hospital. The elderly mother at, Barisi Heights won't have to take an ambulance ride and pay out of pocket. So we put that in this grant, trying to avoid the unnecessary hospital trips.
Spread of disease. For so many reasons. Right. For so many reasons. How many of these people are sick and have diseases and not being treated?
So we included that in the new grant as well. And we're looking to add the clinician with EMS. So no matter who you get, whether it's EMS or police, you'll also have a clinician, hopefully a recovery coach. And then the last piece was, because everyone's talking about the homeless, as you know, you guys even called me homeless coordinator at first. We finally will have a homeless coordinator.
That wasn't me, by the way. That was him.
Yeah, it's all good.
I had no part of that. That was him.
Either way. Because right now...
but just for the record, you are the Director of Substance Use and Homeless Outreach Services for the city of Fall River.
Director of Outreach Services, and we work on substance use and mental health grants. So we didn't have something official just for a homeless grant. We used to during COVID, and that money dried up. So since then, we haven't had a city homeless person. But because it's so overlapping and everyone in the city cares a lot about this, we do obviously make it our mission to try to help as much as we can.
Of course.
But now you're talking every substance use call that comes in to 911 or just a referral, every mental health call, and then we have the homeless, right? Wow. So we had to, we agree, add another homeless person. It's been a long time. So we partnered with South Coast Hospital, their community wellness workers, and hopefully that'll start October 1st as well.
That's amazing.
Because it's a full-time job doing each one of those things for 24/7.
Of course. But having something like South Coast is such a juggernaut, right? And to be able to have that financial support.
Exactly.
And their expertise, right? They already have those people in place and could probably volunteer.
And we work with them all the time already. Right. We were just doing it free, but not for free. And you know what I mean?
Right.
Just trying to merge these collaborations and the agencies. There's agencies that are doing great things. But if you don't communicate and you don't work together, people fall through the cracks. Sure. So this new hub that we started in 2020, but COVID immediately killed, the resurrection of that is going to be a game changer, I think.
Oh, wow.
Like I said, 30-something agencies, from the schools to the courts to the prisons to everything, right?
Yeah.
It's a team.
So let me ask you some history, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, you've seen this whole epidemic take place. Mm-hmm. Right now, you're in the midst of all of this. You see it every day. It's part of your life every day. What would you say the number one cause is of people being homeless? And like, I know addiction typically comes after the fact. You know what I mean? You know, unless it's by happenstance, right? Like somebody's going in the medicine cabinet. You know what I mean? Typically, trauma is a driver, I think, in most cases. Would you say that is typically what you see? Is it trauma, and the point I'm trying to get to is it psychological? Do we have like a mental health crisis on our hands? Because, I mean, what's the difference, right?
We have both.
Right?
They always ask what came first, the trauma or the addiction, right? But it's the chicken and the egg.
Right.
It truly is both. I don't think I've met an addict that didn't have some level of mental health issue going on. But when you add that trauma and, you know.
Yes, right.
But I do think there's multiple facets, right, of homelessness. We do have people on the street that don't have an addiction. Mm. We have maybe a few that also don't have mental health, and it was just a matter of rent being too high, or they had a surgery.
The formula.
They can't work, right, all of that.
Yeah.
So a lot goes into being homeless, but I think eventually addiction is a incurable progressive disease, and it's going to take your apartment, your home, your children, your car, your job. It's going to take everything.
Yeah, but even knowing that, it doesn't stop you. Mm-mm. Right?
No.
It's that.
You don't think it's going to happen to you at first, though. You believe the people are weak, that you're stronger than that. You truly can't fathom what addiction is until you're in it. And then when you mix the physical withdrawals, because that was a whole nother surprise that I had no clue that was coming. It's just unbearable, you know, and it takes a village. And I really wish we would get to a place like Portugal where, you know, because they cut theirs by 50%,
yes,
maybe more. We can't just rip people from society and put them into jail and take all their connections and everything they love away. Mm-hmm. It has to be at the same time. Yes, they should have consequences. We can't baby them. But if they're willing to work, let's give them those connections and the steps up. Let's get you a training so you now have a skill. Mm-hmm. You know, the more that we can put them successful and in the community, like for me.
Purpose.
Yeah, it was the volunteer work.
Right.
Project Reconnect.
Yes. Purpose. I think the key to all it, give people purpose, mm-hmm, and they will flourish. And and I think that's what happens. People lose their purpose and they don't, like, what am I doing here? Right. And it's just this perpetual sickness that they're trying to chase all the time.
And once you're in it, it seems like a mountain by yourself. Yeah. Think about it, right? So for the F.A.S.T team, the birth certificates, Mayor Coogan waived, so we can get those for free. Mm-hmm. We can't. United Way is going to pay the $25 license fee. We have people that give free phones. We've made all these connections so that this person that's homeless with no phone, no transportation, doesn't have to get to City Hall, then the RMV, and then Social Security, and then try to find some way to apply for a job. So we try to make it as fast as possible for them, right? And it's just so, like, defeating on your own, you know?
Right.
It really is.
Well, because you can't see the compound, right? You can't see the compound effect, and it's one of those things where I can get in a little bit, but they need a little bit more, but I got to be over here, and I can't give them that little bit more that they need.
Right.
If you had to ask for anything from the state, from the city, what would you ask from them? What could you guys? Could you really use? What do you really need?
I need more beds, more shelter beds. Either that or a piece of land where we can try the tiny houses or the campsites, one or the other, because we try to work miracles, right? And get creative and put people where we can, but the housing first model from HUD sucked. That gave us handcuffs where if you're going to put someone in a HUD program, give them free apartment, you can't treat their addiction. You can't force treatment for their mental health. So what's happening was they were getting these housing programs, and 6 months later they turned it into a trap spot, and now they're evicted and back on the street. And now they're in a worse spot because they have the eviction, right? So I believe Trump is changing that right now. which hopefully doesn't go too far left or right, whatever.
Right.
But if they can just stick to that, where we can offer help while doing a housing model, I think that's the most successful. So if we can have more beds, a shelter, or a piece of land where we can take these agencies, give them, the things they need to feel like a human, but also work with them regularly day by day where they're safe. Because right now they're not safe. It's hard to focus on doing anything good for yourself if you're not safe,
True.
I think that has to be step one, but it can't be alone.
Right.
It has to be with the conjunction and the willingness to do the services.
So November, we have a new mayor. What's the conversation?
If we have a new mayor, you're saying?
Yes.
The conversation would be... I would
personally,
like
between
them
you,
to
not to
catch
cut you
up.
off in either way, I think it's a new mayor no matter how you look at it. I think, between Coogan and whoever the other mayor is, it's going to have to be a new mayor. The same old process that we've been going through, it just isn't working for everybody. You know what I mean? It works for some, it doesn't work for all. So for me, my vision is I'm hoping that this mayor, the next mayor, is a new mayor. And I'm going to have Coogan in, and I can't wait to talk to him and see where he's at. You know what I mean?
I think you'll be surprised, right? Because I don't want to speak for him. I'm glad you're going to have him in. But he shocked me with a lot of things, right? The fact that he's been in the encampments with me all the time, calling me 24/7, like asking, what can we do next, right? He did make the call to Watapa Heights to try to see if we could possibly use that land, right? Yeah. He's open and willing, and he listens to different people that...
It's important for people to hear
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah,
yes.
There's just so much noise in politics. But one thing that I don't lie, right? I will say, like, there are some things that Jazel, you know what I mean? Yeah. I didn't like he promises money from the marijuana dispensaries. I've never seen it, right? So far, Coogan has delivered on his promises to me with the mental health, addiction, and substance use, right? But as far as what I hear with, like, the lights, millions of dollars on the Braga, I don't like that. You know what I mean? But I think...
Like $28 million.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I don't know who made those decisions and that stuff, but I'm not a fan of that,
Right.
But I will not lie about the fact that I see him doing well.
You feel that you've been supported?
In my area.
Yes. That's important. That's important. And it's okay to say that. And people need to hear that. That's okay. Because this is a very important piece. This is our community. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And whether, and it's funny, I heard conversation of, well, how many of these people are actually from Fall River and how many people, you know what? Does it matter? They're here. They're our problem. We have to fix our problems. We can't turn our heads.
But it's even lower than people think, too. Like, everyone loves to say they're not from here.
Yeah.
Well, what constitutes them from here? Because I have, yes, you're right, this person's been living in Texas for 3 years, but their mother and their children are here. You know what I mean? So now they're here.
Right.
Like, they either have roots here or they lived here 5+ years ago. You know what I mean? Something brought them here. The one thing that we just realized is Star and Stepping Stone obviously have detoxes, right? So people are coming there, and halfway houses. People come there from all over. They didn't know Fall River. What we need, and what we've just had meetings about, is to make sure they get bus tickets back to wherever they go, or a ride back to where they go.
Okay. All right. All right.
But other than that, how are they just going to Google Fall River? You know what I mean?
True.
Except sober houses. A light bulb came on to me last week, and I instantly called Mayor Coogan. I was like, we forgot about the sober houses. Now that they're MASH certified, which is a state system, there's a MASH website, and you can type in any town, and you can see the sober houses, and they're also bringing them here, right? So a guy called me to try to get EWE funds. He's like, oh, but I just changed my ID to Fall River. I've lived here 3 months. I came from Lowell. I'm like, no, you're not from Fall River. So I'm sorry. Like, this, we used the funds for the EWE grant for Fall River citizens only, right?
It's
Residents.
amazing that information even gets out. Right, like everybody's talking about it, right? Like, it's amazing to me that even happens.
But they came here for the sober house, you know? But once you're in one of our sober houses, you're going to hear, right? About the different grants and things. But sober houses also need to do their part if they're kicking someone out to make sure they get home. I think if we can stop sober houses, the detox, and the halfway house, why else would people come here? You know what I mean?
True.
I can't think of another reason.
Right. So obviously, I can see data is very important, right? To compile data, look at trends, figure out where to allocate the resources. I see that that's very vital to what it is you're doing. So in doing so, like when I had Carlos sitting in the chair, I asked Carlos, I'm like, Carlos, what do you think about AI? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we obviously AI is everywhere, but when you talk about the city and maybe being able to compile some of this data, do you think that would help you? Like to have an AI agent, or if the city had some type of AI computer system that you could tap into that to be like, hey, here's all this valuable information.
So in our grant, we do have evaluators, which is basically AI workers.
Okay, all right.
They track all our data. We have to have really nice, cute quarterly reports that go to Samsher and the feds.
Yeah.
But AI is great. You know what I mean? I'll take more help. You know what I mean?
Right.
But no, the data is extremely important. I know the city's working on with the opiate settlement money. They get data from each person that they gave the money to so that they can try to see what's really happening. Yeah. Excuse me, but the more the merrier. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
of course.
we have to get, like, in 5 years ago or 6 years ago, the numbers of what they said was homeless in Fall River was nowhere near accurate.
Higher or lower?
Much higher.
Oh, okay.
So it's a national point in time count. Okay. Everyone in the country has to do it, but they mandate that it happens in the end of January, early February. So dead of winter. Mm-hmm. There's way more shelter beds open. People have friends that'll let them stay if it's snowing, right? I've gone out on the national point in time count in a damn blizzard to try to count people. So, of course, we weren't finding as many as we should have, right? And, of course, the state and the feds, they all manipulate it for that reason.
So if they're in a bed, they're off the count.
They don't count. They don't count the count.
How convenient that that's in January.
Right,
it's very convenient.
Exactly.
Very convenient.
Mm-hmm. So over the last, I'd say, 2 or 3 years, we've really made it a point to have teams. We've had events to try to actually scour the city to find these people. And I think that's why part of the reason you see higher numbers as well, because 4, 5, 7 years ago it was all, whatever. Yeah. But also, obviously, it's just national. There's way more homeless people than we've had ever before, but we want the accurate number. I want to know how many do I need to save or help or find a place for.
Yes,
you know what I mean? You can't fudge the numbers. You can't. What is pretending help? You know what I mean?
Right.
So the state just handed down, they gave everyone an option to respond. And thankfully, Mike Dion allowed me to do it with Mary Camara and answer their questions about how many beds do we need? What are we still lacking? It was like 8 questions of they want an accurate picture.
Sure.
So I wrote it out as best as we could with Mary. If they can support us in some way that we don't have, you need to know that our point in time count numbers, 80 of those beds go away a month later. You know what I mean?
Right.
Let's get serious here.
Yeah, and I think the data you need it's time, right? You need to compile the data. You can't take it in just snapshots of certain months of the year. Like you have to compile the enormous amount of data to be like, okay, well this is what we need, right?
Yep.
This is amazing to me. So I hear a lot of things, right? People talk and they say things, and I think a lot of people don't realize the actual substance of what they're saying because they're not out there and they don't see what's out there. David happened to take a walk out on the trail the other day, and he called me. He's like, dude, you would not believe what I just seen. And I actually told Chris, I'm like, hey, I know the rail trail because I walk from Meditech to Britland Park and then back again. And it's nice.
Yes,
it's a nice walk.
Right,
but realizing that 20 feet into the woods, there are people that are literally fighting for their lives.
Yep.
And that's the part that I think we're kind of like this, you know what I mean? And I appreciate you. And I realize that this is not an easy thing to do. And I don't think anybody could do this unless you have really thick skin. You're a warrior. You are an absolute warrior. And not only do you do this, but you put up a lot of bullshit that you shouldn't have to. And I think that sometimes, and I say this often, the people that do the most say the least and take the most criticism, right? Because for us, it's this. It has to be this, right? Because you represent the team. You've got 9 other people that are working with you that you represent that are looking to you to be like, hey, Niki, right?
I was glad it was just coming at me, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, you can take it because absolutely you are a warrior. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, I've been through a lot that should have killed me. So, a couple of people that just have a lot to say. It's not going to kill me,
Yeah,
right?
wow.
It's going to fuel my fire to make sure that, like, we're still doing more every day. Like,
Sure.
I don't ever want to be complacent or think that Fall River's great. We got this. Like, we're heading in the right direction, yes.
Yeah.
But we still have a lot
But
of
Niki,
work to
it
do.
is great because people like you are willing to stand up and help other people. That's what makes the city great. So people can say whatever they want.
Yeah.
What this city is us. It's the people that actually stand up and are saying, "Hey, we want to make a difference." You know,
Yeah.
we see more in those that don't see it in themselves. Like that's the bottom line here. So real quick before we walk out of here, what do you see 5 years from now? Where do you see this organization? Where do you see yourself? What does this look? If you had a dream,
I have a dream.
What is it? I want to hear it.
So actually, I'm writing a book. You know, so that's actually like my personal dream
amazing.
About my story and everything.
Yeah.
And it's called Nothing Left Except Life. And I'm like halfway. But beyond that, for the city, in 5 years, I see it thriving as its own department. You know, right now we're under community development. And it absolutely, I believe, should be its own department for mental health, substance use, and homeless. And I hope that one day that it is up to about 15, 20 people with a rotation of officers. Right now we have one. We're about to possibly have two. You know, but I don't want it to be where there's an hour in the city that you can't have that clinician.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be 24 hours a day,
right?
Because there's still times, like, you know, there was a shooting with the police and stuff. Like, you never know what the difference could be if the clinician is there or the recovery coach can help this person, right?
Yep.
So I want to get it to where it's 24 hours a day. That's the goal. The goal is to have less deaths every year, less crisis calls, and a big one I think that people often overlook is when I had to go for help, I had to call for days and days to get a detox bed. Right now, that person doesn't even need to make the call themselves. We can text people. We have relationships with most of the detoxes in the state. And it's a matter of like 3 texts. Yep, they can come in an hour. You know what I mean? Like, I want that machine to continue.
Yeah.
So whether it's me or not, the people that are working with me, you know, those things, fill in the gaps.
That's huge because I had Kyle sitting in that chair. I'm so glad you just said that because that was one of his biggest concerns is when he decided that he needed help. It took him 2 weeks to get a bed.
Yeah,
so he had to wait. So in those 2 weeks, if he had a weak moment, like Kyle might not be with us today,
dead,
right?
And honestly, I think the longest that I've seen it in the last couple years is a day.
That's progress. Hey, that's progress. That's progress.
But most of them, same day.
Yeah. Would you say that this is the organizations that are stepping up?
All of it.
The coordination?
It's their, you know, they're fixing their systems, right? It's us recognizing the gaps, and it's our ability, because everyone used to only work if you were going to get grant money and certain accolades.
Yeah, what's in it for me?
Exactly. And we've broken down those silos, and we're all working together, you know, and we talk all the time. Like, I literally just texted someone at, I think, like 11 o'clock last night. Do you have a bed? Yes, I do. You know what I mean? And they can provide transportation. That needs to be available to everyone.
Right.
Unfortunately, not everyone knows they can call our hotline and have this kind of help. Right. So there still are mothers that are struggling, trying to find their kids' beds for a couple days, you know. I haven't seen weeks in a long, long time, but even a day is too much, right?
Right.
So
that's amazing. Would you mind sharing that phone number with us one more time, please?
Yes, 508-676-3528.
And if somebody's out there right now and they need help, what would you recommend?
Call the hotline right now. I'm leaving the building shortly, and our team will be there, but it depends on what kind of help you need, right? It used to be methadone, weeks to get an appointment, next day, sometimes same day now again. You know, whatever you need, though, talk it through. Like, give us a call. You know, if you already are working with an agency, have them help you. I don't care who helps you, but have someone.
What if I have a loved one? Can I call?
Of course.
If I want to support my loved one, can I call you and be like, hey, this individual needs my help?
Absolutely. We do a lot of family support, a lot of interventions, things like that.
And if I want to stay anonymous, like you guys will...
Doesn't matter.
Okay. That's
Absolutely.
important. That's important.
Yep. I really can't see a fear of someone calling, but if you have experienced one, please let me know and I'll work to change it. But we try to just be welcoming to anyone. And
can I say thank you to you and your team? I appreciate everything you guys do every single day. I would, if we could keep in contact, I would love to maybe go on a ride with you and go check this out for myself. And
no, that'd be
really,
great.
you know what I mean? It's really understanding, I think, what's out there. It's one thing to sit here and talk about it, but to actually experience it and to see what's out there. I never want to talk about things that I don't know about.
Yeah.
And I'm all about the human spirit. I'm all about the journey, and I want to support this as much as I can. And I want my audience to be able to help you, and maybe we bridge that
Let's do it.
that gap. And
I'm gonna run you ragged though.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right.
Let's
all right.
do it.
It sounds like Donkey Kong.
All right.
Nikki,
Sounds
thank you so
good.
much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time to come into the show. I know
Thank
that
you.
my audience, as well as many people that that I'll never know, appreciate the amazing work that you do. I mean, you are an angel. You are you are a warrior, and you, most importantly, you are a survivor. Like
Thank you.
I'm blessed to be in your presence, and it's an honor for you to have you on my show.
Oh,
Thank you,
too
Nikki.
kind.
No,
Thank
I mean
you.
it. I mean it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate it. This was a monumental show for me, understanding that struggle is real for all of us, and coming to grips with the truth is probably the most important thing you can ever do with your life. And realizing that you need help is the strongest decision you'll ever make. Please remember that you have the strength inside you, that there are people around you that love you, and that there are people like Nikki who are willing to support you with anything you need. Reach out, call the number if you need it. But most importantly, remember that all roads lead here.